We'll be moving on to item D1, discussion and direction to staff regarding lease site 69-70 and 69W-70W located at 599 Embarcadero Road. This is the Morro Bay Aquarium, and we'll turn this over to Mr. Buckingham.
I think I'll take this one also. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and esteemed members of the Morro Bay City Council. Just thought I'd try some new words there. So the purpose of this report is to get your direction from the council on a staff proposal to work directly with the Central Coast Aquarium, I'll refer to them as CCA going forward, to develop a proposal related to the Morro Bay Aquarium lease site. The staff recommends that the council direct staff to work directly with the Central Coast Aquarium Board of Directors and executive leadership, and by extension Cal Poly, and we'll sort of get into that, to assist the CCA to develop a proposal for the operation and future redevelopment of the Morro Bay Aquarium lease site. Normal agenda with a motion at the end. So a quick bit of background. The Morro Bay Aquarium, under the tenancy of Dean and Bertha Tyler, has been a significant presence on our Embarcadero for 50 years. The city wishes to honor that legacy while also building for the next 50 years. In 2011, the city began the normal lease renewal process by contacting the current leaseholder. The leaseholder was not able to propose any significant changes to the existing physical site or the operating agreement. The current leaseholder's plans did not include what we considered to be minimum essential improvements for a 50-year-old lease site. For example, extending the sort of boardwalk around the back of the site, widening the sidewalk in front of the site, and other things that we consider to be essential for a modern lease. Additional background: in 2012 and 2013, the council directed staff to develop an aquarium and marine education RFP for the site. The city received no responses meeting the conditions set forth in that RFP. The city did receive a proposal from the current leaseholder that included very, very minor changes to the physical site, changes that did not meet the physical or operational conditions of the RFP, as previously stated. At the same time, the city also received many inquiries from the Central Coast Aquarium. The clear indications that the Central Coast Aquarium wanted to meet both the aquarium and the marine education conditions, and over time the physical conditions, but those conversations did not result in a formal response to the RFP. As staff considered the way ahead, a number of informal discussions with the Central Coast Aquarium resulted in us bringing you this agenda item. Further discussion: the 50-year history of the Morro Bay Aquarium should be honored and that legacy remembered and enshrined. And I'd just like to pause here and tell you that in the discussions that we've had with the Central Coast Aquarium to this point, they're adamant about that, and they sort of envision a wall with a plaque, perhaps with photos, but with decisively recognizing the history that the Tylers had with the aquarium here in Morro Bay, and really honoring that legacy while looking forward to the next 50 years. But that said, we should take action now to secure a bright, multifaceted, visitor-serving future for the aquarium site. The City Council has clearly stated an intention to attract a partner with the capacity to revitalize the aquarium site in a way that supports our vision for the next 50 years. And this intention includes both a visitor-serving aquarium component and a marine education component. The city released an RFP seeking such a partner, but no proposals were submitted for consideration, no proposals that met the conditions. Our analysis is that the RFP that we released may have been too constricting for a nonprofit to make a proposal that met the requirements laid out in the RFP. or the timeline may have been too short to allow for redevelopment of a proposal or for development of a proposal of the scope and the nature the city envisioned. So it might have been that our RFP wasn't crafted really well in order to attract a nonprofit with the marine education component. The current leaseholder has requested a 10-year lease extension through 2028. This request did not include any substantial physical improvements to the site or operation. It did not add any educational components, which were a key part of your RFP. It was essentially operate the site as is for an additional 10 years. The Central Coast Aquarium, if you're not aware, is a 501c3 nonprofit that owns and operates the Central Coast Aquarium in Avila Beach. I've been there. That aquarium serves visitors on weekends and on summer, open doors visitors on weekends and summer weekdays. On weekdays during the school year, that aquarium attracts normally 2 school groups a day that come to town for the purpose of visiting that aquarium for either half-day or whole-day programs. Informal meetings with Central Coast Aquarium leadership indicates a keen interest to work with the city to develop perhaps an even broader opportunity in Morro Bay at our current aquarium lease site. Staff believes that we share a common vision. When I say we, that we, the city of Morro Bay, as articulated by the council in the RFP that you asked us to release, and the Central Coast Aquarium, we think we absolutely share a common vision for the future. The long-term goal is to create a multifaceted recreational, educational, and research facility in Morro Bay. Those are 3 different components that are important. Recreational, not like swimming or running or hiking, but recreational like an attraction, an activity to go to. An educational facility, for example, for school groups, and a research facility that this could well turn into. This would include, in time, building a brand new aquarium, perhaps a $5 million project or more or less. The project would likely be a type of public-private partnership involving the Central Coast Aquarium, Cal Poly, and the city of Morro Bay. Conceptually, the future aquarium perhaps would have a first-floor aquarium that's primarily visitor-serving. It would have a dock suitable for the Cal Poly research vessel to dock there at the aquarium. It would have a marine research laboratory for Cal Poly students and researchers, but with interior windows that would allow visitors to the aquarium to sort of look through and see the researchers researching. I hear it's very exciting to watch that. It would have a large second-floor space suitable for either school groups when they come as part of their education component, or for Cal Poly college classes, or for events, weddings, other public event or other private events that parties that might want to have a wedding or a party in an aquarium. And finally, as I noted, it would honor and enshrine the first 50 years of the Morro Bay Aquarium and the Tyler's contributions to the city of Morro Bay. So in summary, the staff believes that this vision is consistent with previous council guidance and with the vision of improved attractions here in Morro Bay, sort of not just another place to sleep or another place to eat, but a reason to come to Morro Bay and thus have a reason to sleep and eat here. The staff believes that some level of city subsidy, and therefore I should say, the staff believes that some level of city subsidy of this nonprofit resident and visitor enhancing partnership may be appropriate. Perhaps a reduced cost of permits, reduced lease fees, or both. But staff is confident that there may be a way to structure a proposal that would be beneficial both to the city of Morro Bay and to the nonprofit Central Coast Aquarium. And critically, on the subject of finances, any proposal would be required to come back to you for your approval, likely by the end of this calendar year. So in conclusion, the Morro Bay Aquarium has been an important part of and significant institution, and for Morro Bay's first 50 years, we should build on that legacy while we rebuild the aquarium for the next 50 years. The city conducted numerous public meetings in 2013 in determining to go out to RFP for a 21st century aquarium and marine education facility to replace the existing aquarium. And while no formal proposals were received, the city's informal discussions with the Central Coast Aquarium make it clear that we share a common vision. So I would ask you to consider this motion that the council direct city staff to work directly with the Central Coast Aquarium Board of Directors to develop a proposal for a public-private partnership for the operation and future revitalization of the Morro Bay Aquarium lease site, a proposal that must come back to council for review and eventual approval before any binding agreement is consummated. And with that, we will entertain your questions.
Mr. Buckingham,
In fact,
thanks
we'll
for that
even answer
report.
them.
Okay, thank you. And we'll start off with questions from council. I'll start off with John. Do you want to start us off with questions?
Since I've been intimately involved, I don't have any questions.
Noah? Matt? Christine? Okay. Thanks. And we'll open it up for public comment. Anybody would like to speak to this item may do so now. Public comment is open. Seeing none, I'll close public comment and bring it back for discussion. I'll turn it to you, John, for opening up for discussion.
Well, thank you, Mr. Buckingham. Excellent, succinct presentation and description of what's gone on. This obviously precedes me with regard to the RFP and my tenure here, I should say. Not my life. Well, maybe my tenure here, but I got involved as a result of LEAP. It became a LEAP initiative because of my passion for, and a number of folks' passion, including Christine, who is on the team, and staff, to see an educational facility slash attraction for economic improvement and development vis-a-vis aquarium, and an entity that could satisfy the future, a significant future for many years to come. And again, I just want to reiterate that in no way takes away what has gone on from what I've learned in the past 50 years by a wonderful family who had a vision and maintained an organization for a tremendously long period of time, but it's a new day. And so with that, I find in CCA an extremely willing partner that has demonstrated success, that is rising to the occasion, a sense of great excitement. I see and sensibility to do fundraising, significant fundraising that I think is important to be able to make this happen. But I also see a good relationship already established with Cal Poly, and for me to see an educational component incorporated into this that's above and beyond what I initially maybe even had dreamed could happen, and that could be even the possibility of a program here that involved not only students attaining their BS, but also grad students doing research, which there's already a lot of research going on with Cal Poly here. But now this would provide for a site that would be adequate, hopefully, to allow them to increase the capacity with which they do their research and significantly improve the quality of the ecosystem that we want to maintain. And I want to just say that the foundation of this really is to improve and maintain the quality of a unique estuary that exists along the California coast that is like none other in my mind, not only in California but in the world. And now is presented with some significant dangers with regard to degradation of the ecosystem by a number of pollutants that are being studied by Cal Poly and a number of other entities. And so there's a strong desire to see preservation and enhancement of that ecosystem here. And it fits with our goals of wanting to improve dramatically our draw of those that come to our community that possibly have greater disposable income, that will spend money here and improve our economy to see this wonderful working facility, but also allow for our kids to have a place to come and see education at its best and to stimulate young minds at a very early age to possibly become involved with this kind of appreciation and scientific advancement for the wonderful blessing that we have here in Morro Bay. And so with that, I want to thank Christine for coming alongside with us on our LEAP team and helping to facilitate a significant amount of this, and Dave for your work to date with the team that has moved forward, and I highly support the motion that we have here, and would be ready to make that after discussion. So,
Noah?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm also very excited. And what I see here happening is exactly what I think we wanted to see happen in 2013 when we took the action that we did to say this space is very unique, our estuary is unique, and we need to be prepared to work with organizations to establish that for the long term and revitalize that entire area, not allow it to return to what likely it would have been without the Taylors, another hotel or restaurant. So we took that effort in 2013. At that time, talking with the CCA and knowing that they had the capabilities and interest, I'm really glad that we've worked with them to iron that out and come back and identify also that Cal Poly is interested and confirm that. It's really been laid out very nicely to this point, and I'm looking forward to us continue that. It's what I think to be probably one of the most exciting projects on the Embarcadero, if not the entire town.
Thanks, Noah. Matt?
Sure. This is a great opportunity, as has already been stated. But then looking at everything we've been doing on the Embarcadero with the Harbor Walk and creating this unification, and then especially talking about community partners, not just necessarily the community, Central Coast Aquarium, but if we look at Cal Poly PG&E, look at this whole concept, wave technology, not necessarily the plan that was brought to the Harbor Advisory Board last year, but what talking down by Vandenberg, this whole idea of the scientific outreach. So this is really exciting. So it'll be good seeing this go forward.
Christine?
Okay, thank you. I think that I agree that now we have a different council than in October 2013, and it's exciting that we all are at a point where we understand that this is a unique opportunity and we want to take advantage of it. And I realize that, you know, we had a choice to accept that the current leaseholder's 10-year kind of status quo plan. And, you know, really, we were asking for a little bit longer than that, a different kind of vision. And, you know, it's okay. You know, they wanted to do 10 more years, and they felt that that was their capacity. So I think when we realized that that was where they were comfortable with, we said, you know, we really want something a little different. Let's just try and see what would happen. We didn't have any idea who would even respond. So I think it's important to note, too, as Dave did in his report, that even though that the Central Coast Aquarium didn't respond to the RFP, they never lost touch with the city of Morro Bay and continued to reach out and ask us about the process and refine their questions to a point where they felt they could respond. And in addition to, you know, we did again have the same proposal from the current leaseholder. So we're kind of in the same position that we were originally. Now we're making a decision to move forward with CCA. And I think part of that is they were challenged by the fact that most of our activities that happen that leaseholders are doing are private businesses, basically. And that is how we're looking at them. So when we send out the RFP, you know, it's like a boilerplate, and it doesn't fit this creative, unique partnership that we're wishing to develop. And certainly a nonprofit wouldn't have the same ability to generate certain kinds of revenue than, you know, a hotel and a restaurant. But we are absolutely right. We're saving ourselves. Not that there's nothing wrong with a hotel and a restaurant at all. However, we often hear those folks, too, who own and run those businesses, that they were hoping for more and different attractions to bring people to stay overnight at the current places. So I think it's a good fit. Info I learned on this phase 2 of working with Central Coast Aquarium that I want to share with you that you wouldn't otherwise know is that the Central Coast Aquarium is a very strong organization now that we've kind of had a conversation with them, 1 or 2 conversations. They're very strong, and they have a very committed board, and that's super important when you're talking about a 501c3. Their board is committed not only to the governance of the organization, but also, as John said, to the fundraising aspect of the organization. And it's really heartening to see that, because that will, of course, we will need a strong partner if we're talking about creating a $5 million facility. So I believe they are absolutely up to the challenge of partnering with us in that way. The other thing is that Cal Poly is an exceptional partner. There's no one who would deny that. Having a connection to Cal Poly would only benefit Morro Bay directly. And then also I wanted to just point out that Dean Wendt is the person that is meeting with the Central Coast Aquarium and is their contact, and he, of course, is well known here to our community in Morro Bay, is very active with our fishing community. So that's also another connection where he understands who we are as a community, and it gives us some good connection. The AZA requirement that we had talked about when we discussed this almost a year and a half ago, what I learned was the AZA, American Zoological Association, we had hoped that any future facility would meet those requirements. And then as Central Coast Aquarium does not meet them now at their current site because their space is not large enough. But they are about to expand onto some county property that is directly attached to their current facility, and their new facility will then become AZA accredited, as would any new construction that would happen here in Morro Bay. So that was an important topic when we discussed going out for RFP. I wanted to report that back. And all along, I found that the Central Coast Aquarium staff were very interested in working with the current leaseholders in whatever capacity the current leaseholders would be willing to do so. And however that would shake out, they are willing and have approached them several times to just sort of collaborate. So we'll see where that goes in the future. But they are still committed to that, still committed to honoring them. And then the last thing I would say is the Morro Bay fishing community, I didn't realize, has ties to the Central Coast Aquarium. Actually, they will often bring certain species or things that they maybe catch, a bycatch or something, and they'll bring it in and they'll share that with the aquarium, and that's a great connection. It's actually our Morro Bay-based fishermen that are connected to that facility as well. So there's so many good connections that we really weren't aware of, and I wouldn't have been aware of until we took another fresh look at this through the LEAP program. So I appreciate that, and just wanted to share that with the whole council, because we can do that now. We're all together. So I, of course, support the item.
Thanks. Just wanted to recognize the vision of the Tylers as far as wanting to start their aquarium. And really, the Central Coast Aquarium had similar visions and started off in a similar fashion, a very small aquarium, as I understand it, on the pier in San Luis Harbor, Port San Luis, and grew to the Central Coast Aquarium that we see today. And I think we need to recognize the Taylors and the Central Coast Aquarium. It really kind of parallel visions and just maybe a different rate of growth. And there was a different opportunity for the Central Coast Aquarium, obviously, in Avila as a result of redevelopment in that area. So there was a lot of opportunities that afforded them to succeed and build what they did. And I do have to recognize the Central Coast Aquarium and their vision. They reached out to Morro Bay early on, and they were, I think, very respectful and thoughtful of the Tylers and the aquarium that they built. I think their vision for a Central Coast Aquarium expands beyond just Avila and Morro Bay. At least at the time, they were also considering San Simeon. Don't know how far that will expand in the future for them, but I think they do have a strong board. They have a vision to expand. Obviously, everyone spoke about the partnership with Cal Poly. There's a lot of things that dovetail into a great facility in the city of Morro Bay, and I think even to the point where Cal Poly considering expanding their marine program. So there's all kinds of opportunity here. And so without belaboring any more conversation to this that we've all really spoken of, I think it's worthwhile to recognize both entities, both the Tylers for what they've done for the first 50 and Central Coast Aquarium for their vision to continue on. And so I would take a motion by either one of the folks that have been working on this as well.
So I would move that council direct city staff to work directly with the Central Coast Aquarium Board of Directors to develop a proposal for a public-private partnership for the operation and future revitalization of the Morro Bay Aquarium lease site, a proposal that must come back to council for review and eventually approval before any binding agreement is consummated.
Second?
A motion by John, a second by Christine. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Great work. Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to item D2. Item D2 is the discussion and direction of prioritization of planning division objectives. And this is Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mayor Irons, members of the council. Before you this evening, a report that deals with the prioritization of the Community Development Department's work program, and specifically those items that you find on the agenda planning guide that you get every couple of weeks from our city clerk. And that agenda planning guide does track things that are placed on there by staff, things that are placed on there by the council. Some of these items are placed on there with targeted hearing dates. Some have no targeted hearing dates. And then several of the items on the work program or on the agenda planning guide are related to recently adopted city council goals and objectives. I placed them in a table format because you kind of see them in an Excel spreadsheet, and I thought maybe that's kind of helpful. On the board there's That's interesting. Anyway, it's okay because all I was going to be was a list. Not sure. Nope. Still not. Nope. Not sure. Yeah, parklet. What the? That's
You
fine.
want to just slide? You want to slide you want to slide your piece of paper in the projector there? Is that what you want to work off of?
Well, okay.
Whatever.
It's kind of small, the writing on it. So anyway, in your staff report, you have the items placed in a table format. There are 14 items on the list. You see in the table format that you have the item description. You have a notation as to whether they are in the budget or not. And then you have a notation as to whether they're to be completed by staff or a consultant. Are they related to a goal or not? Several of them are related to goals, and some of them are not. The one correction to the list is the sign ordinance. I didn't have that correctly noted, and it is related to goal item 3C. And then the last column of the table includes notes and status of the individual items. So you have items in here like the residential design guidelines. Those are things that we're currently working on right now. It's in the budget insofar as I'm in the budget and I'm the staff person that's working on it. It's related to goal 3D, and again, that's in process, and the next action that's taking place on that is our Planning Commission meeting on May 5th, where the Planning Commission will review the design guidelines in their kind of put-together format, along with whatever information I glean from meeting with the NECA group tomorrow. That's just an example of the things that are on here. You see secondary units. That's also something that is currently underway. You see parking management plan. That's one of the items that we're kind of internally working on at staff, maybe implementing components of that to help out with parking, looking at the overall parking program for the city. Working on that with the Public Works Director, Dave as well, City Manager. Waterfront master plan, there's been some indication that we might want to look at updating that. That's something that requires consultant help and would need funds to move that forward. That is related to improving city plans and so forth, and in item 3 of the goals. You have the Beach Street parking amendment that I brought before you earlier this year, and that was to look at the parking in Beach Street area and to address what to do with that issue. Review of the overall Beach Street specific plan is one of the items on here. Some of the specific plans are fairly short, and there's some idea that they would be informed by the general plan and LCP update, and potentially we'd be able to wrap those in and maybe abandon the overall plan and wrap them right into what the implementation piece of that would be, will be the zoning ordinance, and it would just have a section that dealt with that, and then you'd have one less specific plan. Those are things that you see when you have documents that large chunks of it have not been acted on. So there's a way to, sort of maybe get a few less plans on the shelf. Anyway, that's one idea. You see, again, the site ordinance that I talked about earlier. Historic resource analysis, that's an item that is not one of the goals. So it's not really programmed. We've not allocated any resources to it. It's just something we've talked about to improve service to those folks that are submitting applications into the city. It's kind of an expensive item for folks. You have to do an historic resource analysis if you're tearing down a house and want to put a new one there, and your house is over 50 years old. That's the California Environmental Quality Act requires us to look at that. That's the standard that's put in place. It does, and I've heard some stories that cost upwards of $4,000 or $5,000 sometimes. Very expensive. So having an overall inventory that addressed that versus on a case-by-case basis could be a way to save folks some money. Again, that's something that could be informed out of the general plan LCP update, and I think probably will be. Review of the North Main specific plan. I think that's kind of a little bit like the Beach Street specific plan that I referred to earlier. Reclaimed gray water ordinance. Again, that's something that's not in the budget, potentially could be done by staff. It's not related to a goal, and so prioritization is necessary for those types of things that we don't have as a goal. We have solar ready ordinance, same thing. Commercial design guidelines, something that the Planning Commission felt was important. I think they sent you a letter to that effect, but it's something, again, that's not in the goals. Then finally, downtown specific plan, that's something that is in the goals, is a kind of combination staff time and consultant thing, because probably staff has to go through it, review it. General plan will go through and review it a little bit, and then maybe there's some implementation things that come out of that we use a consultant to prepare that. We have several documents that would lead into this and help with that effort, and so again, you have these 14 items. We're looking to get some prioritization from the council out of them, keeping in mind your goals, potential funding sources or lack thereof, and that type of thing. That ends my presentation. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thanks, Scott. And,
Can I pile on that for a second? That might help extend the staff presentation a little bit. So just as I go through this with Scott, 3 of these where it says goal related, perhaps yes, but is it a goal? No. And so I'd say that the waterfront master plan is related to the idea of having plans, which is goal number 3. But there is not an objective that says work on the waterfront master plan. The same is true of the Beach Street specific plan. It is a plan, that is goal number 3, but there's not an objective related to that goal for this year. And also for the North Main Street specific plan. So as I sort of prioritize look at the documents that we've worked on together and try to figure out what we're supposed to be working on, the first thing I look at is the goals, and then the next thing I look at is the budget. And so there are 6 of these that are clearly objectives that you stated in our goal setting, objective setting exercise. And that is the first 3, residential design guidelines, secondary units ordinance, and the parking management plan. The 5th one, the Beach Street parking amendment, I sort of roll that in under parking. And then skip down to the sign ordinance is a specific objective this year, and then skip down to the very bottom, the downtown specific plan. Those are specific objectives that you have laid out for the staff, and therefore those are the ones that are on our priority list right now. The next question is, are they funded? I believe that you'll get to decide that over the next 2 months, specifically with the downtown specific plan being the one that will require some budget money, and we'll give you the opportunity to choose to fund that or not. But so of those are the first tier to me. They're above the cut line. And then the question is, how do you prioritize those? And then the ones below the cut line are below the cut line, and they are not objectives this year. As we have time and money to work, time and or money to do them, we would certainly do them. But we're going to focus on the first 6. And if you want to keep score, my recommendation would be priority number 1 is the top one, residential design guidelines. Number 2 is the Beach Street parking minute, because we've got community input on that right now, and we're hoping to fix it in the next 3 days or so. Number 3 would be the sign ordinance. Number 4 would be the parking management plan, and that really means working to improve parking. Number 5 would be the secondary unit ordinance, and number 6 would be the downtown specific plan. And I put that one as number 6 because I need you to tell me to spend money on it. So right now, it doesn't have money against it. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll get back to questions. Any questions, Noah?
Thank you. Thanks for your time earlier, Mr. Graham, going over this. And we did talk a little bit about the discussion that we had with impact fees and planning fees, and that not being included on this, but it is part of the work that load that we're going to be dealing with. I had a specific reason about bringing that up in our conversation, but do we need to include that here? That's happening anyway.
Is that the subsidy discussion?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's exactly it.
that's not a goal. I'm sorry. It's not a planning item for this action item for the council was to prioritize the different planning
Items that we had on the
that
agenda.
were on the agenda.
Planning agenda.
So it's not a planning item, even though it's on the agenda planning guide, so it wasn't included here. But we, as you know, are working on that right now.
Okay, good. I also want to make sure that the reclaimed gray water ordinance is very much related to our goals of water capacity and stabilization. So I think we should note that as we look forward on this. Scott had some really good information for me about how he sees us being able to strategically address that, as well as the Solar Ready ordinance, as well as the Green Building Incentive Program, which isn't here, updating that. And he had some great ideas about how to do that to avoid generating work that we could probably utilize state updates on building code and plumbing code in the future that are going to be coming down the pike. So those answered my questions, and that's all I have.
Thanks, Noah. John? Matt?
Yeah, I just had one question. The commercial design guidelines and how does that tie into the downtown specific review?
It would certainly be a portion of it. Now, we have various commercial areas in town, so commercial guidelines could be a couple of different things. They could be generalized guidelines that apply to everywhere equally, or you could have guidelines kind of like our sign ordinance is written. Our draft sign ordinance breaks the commercial areas into 4 and says, hey, you do these things, and these kind of signs are okay here. Several of them are okay in all the zones, are all the different commercial areas. Some of them are not appropriate, and so the design guidelines could be like that. General list of them. These ones we use here, and we use over in North Main. These ones we use downtown. These ones we use in the Embarcadero. It just kind of depends on how that ends up shaking out, and the LCP general plan update will inform that.
Christine?
Do we have any, I think that the compact infill ordinance is on here, but Scott, you said something about maybe we're not, did we put that on recently? That's a hangover?
That's a hangover. It's been there for a while, since well before I came on board here. That's like 2013, sitting at the bottom there and never got a lot of love. The city went through the situation where we had a community housing ordinance that was in the zoning code, and then we thought, we didn't like it, so we decided to put a compact infill ordinance in place, and we decided that we didn't want that to any longer be part of the LCP because we didn't want to deal with coastal, so we put it in the subdivision ordinance. We have some conflicts there because we didn't actually get rid of the community housing ordinance because we never amended the city's LCP, so it's in place too. The compact infill ordinance is also maybe not consistent internally with the remainder of the subdivision ordinance, so there's some things there going on that probably at some point do need to be addressed.
Okay, great. A lot of my specific questions were already covered, so that's it. Thanks.
I'll go back to the compact infill ordinance question as well, just to cover some ground on that. Scott, thanks for talking through some of these items as well. And so you alluded that there may be an opportunity with the subdivision ordinance to be able to address the compact infill ordinance as that's being updated. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Mr. Livick and I just had a meeting with, what was his name? With
Jerry.
John a blank.
Yes, John Lang.
Okay. Anyway, we had entered into a contract
Right.
to update the subdivision ordinance. Paul Ricard. Thank you. I can't believe I forgot his name. And so part of that conversation led into, it's something that was entered into a while ago. Open contract that we have sitting out there, and it's just kind of been sitting there. And the opportunity now would be to maybe pick that up and have that move forward with an update of the subdivision ordinance, which could pick up some of these things and include, some different concepts for subdivisions like vertical subdivision ordinance, things like that. And so we saw an opportunity there where not a lot of staff time has to be done if we have a consultant that's doing it under a contract that we already have. So he's going to be getting back to us, and we're going to be having another meeting in a couple of weeks to sort of flesh out what that might be like. So anyway, that's kind of where that's at.
And so I think back in 2013, I might have had some request to have this revisited because it's not performing as we've had discussions in many ways. And as you explain it, you think, okay, community housing, but we need compact infill, but we don't want to go to coastal, so let's put it here. And then it's not, and all these inconsistencies have created some problems too, particular projects that you and I discussed that really don't meet the spirit or even are performing, let's say. So if it's at all possible that the compact infill ordinance can be addressed through that subdivision, I think that'd be imperative. I think there's a good use for compact infill. For those of you, as a former planning commission, going through some of that, it does meet some of the housing element goals as far as supplying more housing. It is a great opportunity to at least meet a different type of affordable housing possibility. So if we can at all include that in that subdivision contract, I think that'd be great. And how would we get feedback that that's able to happen?
It would have to be, I'd have to bring it back as an item, maybe as an informational item to the council. I mean, that's a potential, after we have the meeting, I'll know where we stand with it and where that contract sits, because I don't, at this point, know that.
Yeah, from the standpoint of, laying out priorities here from goals and then understanding that there may be other things on there, but this might dovetail into a contract that we already have. I would ask that we pursue that and then coming back if we need to do it that way. And if we could get the rest of council, to agree to that. That's just one item that really is a loose end. If we can cover that, it would be great to do. Yes.
Parenthetical comment, I think it's closely related. In the budget that's coming up, I will probably identify a line item that's called the City Manager Opportunity Fund or something like that. X number of dollars that I can sort of have sitting that's already approved for expenditure for something like this. So if there's a contract that you've already approved, and we see if we throw another $7,000 at it and we can scratch something else off the list, that we don't have to bring all of those little things back to council for approval. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm looking at that in the budget for precisely this sort of thing, so that when these little things present themselves, we can just nail them instead of have to fill the council agenda with them.
Okay, great. Thanks for the discussion on compact infill. And as far as the commercial design guidelines and the downtown specific plan, based on the priorities laid out, residential design guidelines, I think that's pretty clear. Beach Street, that's an amendment that we're already, it's in play. Sign ordinance, parking management plan, and secondary units. Sign ordinance, I think would be a great discussion once we get into discussion on priorities for that, along with parking management and secondary unit. I'm kind of leading into some discussion before we open it for public comment, so I'll pause a little bit before I get into that. And I'll just pause there, open it for public comment before I get into comments. So any public comment at this time? I'm getting some head shakes, but that's it. So formality, I'll open it, close it, and bring it back to council, get back into discussion, and then maybe start off with looking at priorities for this. Dave, thanks for kind of laying out some priorities that we have going on there. The one for downtown specific plan being 6 on the priority list, I look at that only because residential design guidelines, as you've laid it out, Beach Street, sign ordinance, those are things that are already in play and are, as I was saying, close to the finish line. Then it's a matter of parking management plan, and great. This will be great discussion for everybody to kind of fold into priorities, and I think that's what we need to do is talk about priorities for this, because there's a lot of these items were sitting on the planning agenda guideline, going nowhere. So it's great to bring this back. Parking management plan and secondary units. Secondary units has been out there for a long time, and I was hopeful that would get close to the finish line as well. And between 4 and 5 parking and management plan, I'm kind of open for discussion on that between council members. But I think that's been a long overdue plan or ordinance that we've been working on that needs to be crossing that finish line as well. And then I think your comments about reviewing the Beach Street specific plan, informing the general plan, local coastal plan update, to me, I think that makes a lot of sense. If we that'll work. The historic resource analysis, this came up in the conversation with your original update. Scott, thanks for doing that. That was 6 months after you came on, which was a phenomenal report and eye-opener for us. And one of the talking points there was the CEQA historic resource thing. May not be a high priority for a lot of folks on council, but it's one of those things that actually can pay back. I imagine if we go through something like this, if projects are, people are getting tagged on with $5,000 every time they go through, because a lot of our inventory is 50 years old, does it make sense to have a document that where, they're just paying a fee? And if it's $100 or $300, people would be thankful to be paying that instead of a $5,000 fee, because we don't have, a document that covers the whole city. So maybe you can help talk that conversation with the rest of council. So it seems like you might be able to have some more conversations with the reclaimed water ordinance and solar ordinance. I think Noah was alluding to some more things on that. The commercial design guidelines I feel as though that's going to be folded into the downtown specific plan. I'd personally place a high priority on the downtown specific plan, but maybe you can give me some comments on that, Joe, as far as how much input I have on anything related to downtown. But I'm just commenting on prioritization. Do you want to pause and make some comments there?
If we keep the downtown discussion to downtown, as opposed to downtown, you're okay.
Okay, all right, good.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
I spent some time with Scott earlier. It's getting late. Regarding, there are important. Every item on here is important for some reason.
Yeah.
And I did that because I am not a professional in planning, and I have great confidence in Scott's ability to be efficient and really strategic about where he puts his efforts when. And I think this is an important practice that we're undergoing. Mm-hmm. I'm a little concerned that we're going to start getting too much into a micromanaging position when I think it would be good for us to highlight or affirm some of the upper level priorities that we want to make sure continue, but leave some flexibility for Scott to be able to go out there and take care of business as he sees opportunities to do so. So I'm hearing you starting to want us to go towards a hard and fast number of priorities and in a certain order, and I'd prefer us actually just to affirm a rough set of upper priorities and let Scott know he's got the flexibility to strategically approach the other ones and implement them as he sees fit.
Definitely appreciate that, and I was following input as far as lead on Dave's comments on priorities laid down in the first 5 and 6, which I think are important to discuss. And I agree when I was talking about the reclaimed water and the solar ready. I think those are things in the conversation about compact infill. I'm not saying we have to put a number on it, but I think our comments on level of importance, your input on, hey, can we address these issues, or I think are inform Scott on how, hey, this is an opportunity. I remember our conversation from this. We've had good input. I'll be able to take care of that. So I agree. And if you feel I'm getting too into the details of it, that's great, and I appreciate that. But so I'll take a pause there and take other comments, based on my discussion points. So thanks, Noah. And I'll look this way. Matt, do you want to start us off with any other discussion?
Sure. In terms of the prioritization, knowing that how hard and fast we're going towards the general plan and the LCP, the residential guidelines, secondary unit guidelines, and downtown plan, I think those are some of our bigger priorities, looking ahead at some of the big picture items we have going for the city. And the other things, I hold with what you're saying, Noah. I think you'll be able to prioritize them as you go. But those big ticket items, being how they're so related to what we've talked about in the last year or so, I think are really big to keep up in front. So,
Christine?
Great, thank you. I think that maybe the reason we're seeing some of these plans hanging out by themselves is because we didn't have the big plan. So I like the way Scott said that waterfront master plan, Beach Street specific plan, North Main Street specific plan would be, he used the term wrap in to the big plan, right? The general plan, local coastal plan. So those I see, I didn't prioritize them because they will be informed by the general plan. So I'm not too worried about those. My priorities are more or less what we heard from the city manager. I feel like I think 1 through 6 can be today 1 through 6 as they are, and then tomorrow something changes and the 2 goes to 1 or the 4 goes to 6. I'm okay with all of those, the way they stand. I'm a little bit concerned about putting too much priority on things that aren't goals, though. If we haven't said it's a goal, then we should put it to the side and say, let's keep a list of things in planning that we did not make as a goal this year. When I had a little conversation with Scott earlier, some of the items, so for example, I mean, I love them too. It's not that we don't love these items, it's just that we, for some reason, didn't make it a specific objective. So we're a little bit stuck. I look at things, the solar ready and the reclaimed water, and it sounds like I think I could put the compact infill. If we say to staff, these things are important, and if there's a new building inspector that comes in and they're able to somehow accomplish that, then please do that for us. But I feel as though we've got a lot of work to do still on residential design guidelines. I mean, there's still a lot to do in a short amount of time. The sign ordinance is not really across the finish line, I can tell you that, just from conversations I've been having. So those things for me are still pretty high priority. My one question is the downtown specific plan. The other specific plans we've said will be wrapped into the general plan, informed by the general plan and local coastal plan update. So I just want to get a grip on the downtown specific. I hear that, and even the city manager, you pulled that out. He pulled it out and said that's different. Can we just talk about why that is different? Because I can't see that. Like, I feel like that one would also be informed by our general plan process. So that one, I'm not sure myself where I think that belongs. Okay, because again, it's similar to the other 3 that we seem to be in agreement can get wrapped in. So why is that one separate? And then I think we should respond to the Planning Commission's request for us to consider commercial design guidelines and just have a little conversation here. But again, I feel like commercial design guidelines is a big deal, like residential guidelines are a big deal. So if we do want to take that seriously, I think we should put that on our list for next time we establish our goals, that we make sure that one gets on the goal sheet. Because I have a hard time looking at our goals, knowing that they entail, and then adding on. So I feel like we're just going to have to try and keep track of that, because I think by the time we got the commercial design guidelines suggestion from the Planning Commission, which is absolutely valid, and I'm glad they're looking at big picture things, I just don't see where we're going to put them in. And then I guess we're asked to look at fiscal year 15-16. So that's my concern about that one particular item. But I'm more than willing to move forward with the generally listed 1 through 6 priorities, allowing staff to manage them as they will, except I would like to just hear a little bit more about why the downtown specific plan would be pulled out. Thanks.
Any other discussion?
So, yes, I generally would agree with what Christine said. What has been prioritized and budgeted for this year in terms of where you're headed and almost to the finish line with, I think absolutely important. I would love to see the sign ordinance just put to bed, and I just hear so much stuff about it. We're almost there. It's close, but it's been going on for forever. The residential design guidelines, absolutely imperative to get it done. Parking management plan, for me, important, as well as the downtown review for now. And those are budgeted items that you're working on now that we're moving forward, and I think we've agreed on. For me, looking forward, no one's mentioned the waterfront master plan. I think there's a lot of dollars left on the table and a lot of possibilities there. So looking in the future for the next budgetary period, I'd be very interested in seeing that as a priority, along with the commercial guidelines, design guidelines, if I haven't already connected those to the residential. So,
Noah?
Yeah, thank you. I would agree. I think those items, I haven't heard anyone disagree with the list as suggested by staff to this point. Okay. Do you mind if I make a motion?
Sure, we'll open it for discussion. I've still got some more talking points, but we'll have discussion.
Are you going to disagree with the first 6 as suggested by staff?
I think Christine asked about clarification on downtown specific and why that was pulled out the way it was. So maybe we can get some clarification on that.
I'll wait on the motion then.
Yeah.
I think with the downtown specific plan, we don't have it. And we do have a lot of planning efforts, though, that have gone into it. So part of that is staff review and then sitting down with the Planning Commission and kind of going through it. Like, hey, this is all the stuff that's been done so far. Now, that is part of the effort that does get wrapped into the general plan and LCP update. That process will look at all of these things because it has to. It has to look at all of the efforts, the planning efforts that the city's undertaken over the years, because otherwise it doesn't have a picture of what the city's looked at, where it thought it's going, where it's going now. So all those things are informative. It could be as simple as, okay, we wait until the general plan update is complete and has told us what we're going to do with this, and we go the route of a strategic plan for the downtown where we accomplish a couple of items. We go through that review, we identify moving into the downtown what maybe like specific improvements we might want to make down there to make it look nicer and make it look better. The specific plan itself, a standalone plan that would deal with that, would have all the infrastructure components and be much more comprehensive. But a strategic plan that connects, the Embarcadero with the downtown and kind of gives us what that might look like, and then gives us some streetscape improvements. Those are kind of maybe something that is faster, quicker wins. And things that could be on the front end of that what would otherwise be a much longer planning process. And so those are some options that would come out of this review process, and some things at the beginning efforts in the general plan, those workshops that we have, that we meet with the downtown folks to talk about, it could come out of those things. And those are actually some planning items that I thought could happen much more quickly than the overall general plan update, or maybe the the eventual document is the specific plan. It could be something that's more directed. So there's some options there, and those are things that we need to explore and talk about, and then make some decisions moving forward. So,
If I could expand on that for a moment.
Yeah.
So many of these things are informed by the general plan. It doesn't mean they're taken across the finish line by the general plan. So the general plan may inform Beach Street or even North Main Street, but there is good reason perhaps to focus also on the downtown specific plan and knock that out as its own specific plan, while the general plan is informing all of these other things. So all these things that say informed, it could be that we identify through the general plan project process that we need and want to do a North Main Street specific plan. And that's what we mean by the general plan's informing that. It's sort of telling us that maybe you do need to do one of those, but you really don't need to do a Beach Street specific plan. We can just capture that in the zoning ordinance. So taking that and taking the point that there's lots of energy and good reason to perhaps focus on our downtown some, because we see that as perhaps one of the quickest wins for broad economic diversification in the city.
Higher value.
That one deserves to be pulled out. And my sense is we will probably fairly quickly, very quickly, in the general plan process, know what we want to, where we want to go with the downtown specific plan. If we got a bunch of folks together today, we could probably map that thing out and say, yep, this is about where we want to go. Whereas some of those others, we might need some more time. So I think, I think I found money to do it this year, which is helpful. Thus, I think, because that one does cost money. That's not, hey, Scott, go do a downtown specific plan. So for those reasons, we sort of pulled that one out as one that could likely get scratched off the list this year, because it was frankly at risk of being an unfunded objective if we didn't have money to do it. Thank you.
And so I have one more comment, Noah, before you make your motion. Just a comment and consideration for the waterfront master plan. As we come into the budget and just considering a waterfront master plan fund out of our harbor enterprise fund, I think that's a worthy consideration when we get into the budget process.
In fact, I should have said it's on here, and if Eric and I can find the money, then that's probably another one that is defined enough that the general plan might inform a little bit, but we've got some waterfront work already done. That's probably one that folks could get together and say, yep, this is where we want to go with it. And I'm sure Eric can find the money in that big harbor fund he's got.
Okay. All right, Noah.
Just one last quick clarification here. Mr. Buckingham, you laid out six, the sixth was the downtown specific plan. Sounds to me like we may just number 1 through 5, or are you still recommending keep the downtown specific plan as number 6?
No, I think it is
Clearly
is above
a
the
goal.
line. It's an objective,
Okay.
and assuming that it makes it through the budget process in the next 2 months, and that's really one of the reasons why I had it number 6, because it's got a budget shadow hanging over it.
Okay.
And can I make one more comment before? And sorry to interrupt you, but sometimes it works the other
Well, I
way.
know this item really gets you going, so I just
so
thought
this
we
is
were
kind
gonna
of
be careful
good.
here.
I have to recognize the commercial design guidelines, because I know we've had comments and input from our planning commission, and I don't want to not recognize that. And so as our planning commission goes through that and we get any more input from that, if there's something that we need to reconsider based on that, I just want to recognize our planning commission, because they've made some comments and remarks on the need for that. So Noah?
Okay, I'll move that we prioritize items as suggested by staff, being number 1, residential design guidelines, 2, Beach Street specific plan, 3, sign ordinance, 4, parking management, and 5 secondary units, and 6 downtown specific plan, and that we retain all items on the work list prioritized by time and regulatory sensitivities, as well as city goals, budget, and staff time, and that we provide staff flexibility to strategically pursue other opportunities to advance items as feasible.
You said Beach Street specific plan. I hope you meant Beach Street parking.
Parking amendment.
Oh, yeah, excuse me.
I was going to
Yes.
comment
Everything
on
was
that
great
during
except for
discussion.
that.
Yes,
but
thank
yeah.
you. I will definitely adjust that. And then I think it would be, so we may want to vote on that, and then I had a follow-up motion that would basically involve
So,
ask.
so we have your motion?
Yeah.
Okay, and so you want to do another motion?
Well, I'm wondering, do I fold in a component that basically opens up the opportunity for staff to bring back individual updates as necessary, and then an annual review of this option with a work plan to
Let's-
be scheduled?
So let's just, can we go ahead and second your motion and
Yeah.
move on? Because I think So I'll second your motion. And I think we clarified Beach Street parking amendment versus the
Yes,
specific
thank you.
plan. Any further discussion on the motion?
A missing element that I didn't hear was a consideration for potential return on investment.
I think that's
In
the
all-
strategic word in there. It's
Could you repeat then your words?
yes, I said we're basically providing staff the flexibility to strategically pursue opportunities to advance items as feasible.
We had a whole bunch of. Could we repeat
We're-
the motion?
what
Could
my
you repeat
motion's-
the motion, Madam Clerk?
Prioritize items as suggested by staff. Number 1, residential design guidelines. Number 2, Beach Street parking amendment. Number 3, sign ordinance. Number 4, parking management plan. Number 5, secondary units. Number 6, downtown specific plan. Retain all items on work list prioritized by time and regulatory sensitivities, as well as city goals, budget, and staff time, and that we provide staff with flexibility to strategically pursue opportunities to advance other items as feasible.
So I guess budget would mean money available to do it. I guess my concern would be that there's
Okay.
some I would like to add return on investment.
Okay, I think that fits pretty easily into the second prioritization, which goals, budget, staff time, and return on investment. I would amend my motion to include that.
I would second your amendment. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. You have another motion, Noah?
Yeah, I don't know if it's important or not, but I thought just to direct staff to bring individual updates on individual items as necessary, and that we have an annual discussion of the work program scheduled.
Scott, any comments?
Aren't you already doing that? The review? Annual?
Way, I think we'll bring individual items to you as we require, either are required or as that we need your guidance.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
No motion
okay, good.
necessary. Let's move forward.
Good. All right. Good. Then we can conclude item D2 and move on to item D3. Great. Yep. We're going to go into item D3. We've got 5 minutes here, and so let's close this out. Yeah. Yeah.
We did.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so just a motion to continue past 11 o'clock if necessary, and let's just keep going.
Rob was fired up. Look at done. Come on, Rob. You can do it.
Item D3. Rob, go.
This is an item to review a stop sign request at the intersection of Main and Pacific Streets. Staff recommends to not put a stop sign in there. Council has the authority to disregard staff's recommendation, and under the Chapter 10 of the Vehicle Code, with a resolution, authorize a stop sign to be installed there. Briefly, you've all seen my reports on stop signs before. It doesn't meet warrants. Rarely do stop sign meets warrants in Morro Bay. Staff cannot recommend unwarranted stop signs, but there's a provision in the Vehicle Code for council to, by resolution, order the installation of a stop sign. That concludes my staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Rob. Any questions to my left? Any questions to my right? Seeing none, public comment is open. No public comment. Bring it back to council. Discussion. Noah?
I think that I'm very careful about this. I think this particular intersection, I will assert, does deserve some additional traffic calming. I think it's proximity to the downtown core, as well as the notable signatures from neighboring businesses and residents. Warrants us to put some effort there. I don't think it'll cause serious negative effects that would cause a great deal of concern to our engineer. And I think along with the traffic stop sign, pedestrian crosswalks would be appreciated there as well.
John? No comment? Matt? Christine?
My comment, I understand, Rob, your point about putting the stop sign there. I do agree with you, Noah, talking about some sort of traffic calming, because folks coming down Pacific Street from Piney Way, they do gather steam. And then you have Main Street there also. So if we don't go for a stop sign, some other sort of traffic slowing device.
Christine?
Well, I was hoping for a roundabout, but since we're not going to get that, then I will go with the majority so far, which is sure, we'll put the stop sign in. And if we don't like it, can we take it out? Do we need a council resolution to remove it? What about that? I'm sorry, I should have asked that first.
So
but what if it's
before,
a mistake?
Before we go
sorry.
into the council majority,
That's
I'll
bad.
make some comments
I'm
on
sorry.
that.
Yeah, but I would probably vote with the majority one way or
Okay,
another
all
on
right.
this. I do have a question floating.
Okay.
What if it's a mistake? What if council, knowing nothing, because we're not engineers, how do you remove it?
In theory, it is possible to remove stop signs. In practice, we never do, because the community will get used to that stop sign there, and it's a worse condition, I think, to remove it than to. It's worse than erring to put it there in the first place. To remove it if
Okay.
it's no longer needed.
Thank you very much. Sorry that I jumped ahead on the vote.
That's okay.
Thanks.
I'd support staff recommendation on no stop sign and perhaps crosswalks. And no, I appreciate you agendizing this, and I appreciate the individual getting all the signatures. I speak from experience, going through that intersection for 15 years daily. And so I understand some of the concerns there, but I think the same concerns apply to dozens of other intersections in town. And I would support staff recommendation on that. I could definitely see the crosswalk, since that is the downtown. We do at least have sidewalks from one part of that to the other. But that would be my comments on this. And, it seems as though we've got differing opinions. But, John, you had some remarks.
Does yield create any difference?
There is a yield there already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, there's not a sign, but.
So
could I just
we've
ask
got-
a question? Did I hear someone say that staff suggested having an uncontrolled crosswalk?
Yes. Well, staff didn't suggest having uncontrolled crosswalks there. Council suggested, what I heard is maybe not the stop signs, but putting crosswalks there
Where there is no stop sign?
where there is no stop sign.
like we have on Moore Bay Boulevard going across to City Park.
Yeah, we have other locations. It is a allowed traffic control configuration. Maybe not the best in the world, but it is allowed.
I'm going to go on a limb. Can I make a motion?
Go ahead.
See what happens? I'll move that we order staff, it's alternative number 1, to return with a resolution that causes the installation of a traffic control device, stop sign, as well as pedestrian crossing at Main and Pacific.
I'll second that for discussion.
So we have a second discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I stopped there today.
Yeah.
Tried it out.
Yeah.
I really feel like people truly living around there, working around there, have signed the petition, and I'm gonna likely support, in this case, the community's request for that, despite, I know, professional advice.
Okay, Matt?
Well, thinking about if you go on the opposite side of Morro Bay Boulevard and we have that downtown section, this would be one way to kind of equal out that area. Do you want to make the?
I'll make a motion that we go past 11 o'clock since we're there. I need a second. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you.
Simply because that is a problematic area and that we did the same thing over 2 blocks away. This is not my most favorable, because I understand what you're saying, Rob. But however, Christine, you make a good point. There's a heck of a lot of people that want this, that using that site all the time. So I'd be in favor of it also.
John?
I guess I'm not in favor of the squeaky wheel gets the stop sign. I'm more in favor of the usual engineering process that's appropriate to determine where stop signs and or crosswalks should be located, because I think we open up Pandora's box to a number of other areas in the community, of which I could begin to outline for you right now, that petitions could be generated and the same exact condition could happen, and you end up with a town that has 50 more stop signs. And I think we should follow usual standard protocol. We have that I know of, no documentation of incidents. We do have concern. I recognize the concern, but I believe we're approaching this based upon squeaky wheel versus proper protocol.
If I can, I'm sensitive to that, and I wouldn't suggest this if we didn't have such a strong petition, which this is probably the strongest I've seen since I've been on council. I'd also mention that the majority of our stop signs in town have been implemented exactly like this, and this extra 1 stop sign is not going to be the end of the world.
Appreciate your comments. I will go along with John's vote on this as I led into my discussion on this. I feel exactly the same way. I think, and not to say that we don't appreciate the work and that it took to get all that. Quite honestly, when that came forward and you made a motion to agendize it, I was hesitant to even support it then, but I had to recognize and do recognize the amount of work that went into getting that. And I had to rely on the process, and I rely on the engineering result that came of that. And I think we get into are we going to get into 7 other intersections like this? And I just don't believe we need to be spending that kind of time on that. And I don't mean that to be insensitive, but I did state when on the very beginning, for 15 years I've been going through that intersection at least once a day. And, I understand some of the concerns, but I don't feel as though there is a safety concern in excess to warrant a stop sign. And those, I'll leave my comments to that. We've already made our comments, and I'll take the motion for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. So motion carries 3-2. That concludes item D3. Future agenda items. Any discussion for future agenda items? Seeing none?
No.
Seeing none, we'll adjourn. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.